welcome back to the LEC. It's time for a bit of Rogue versus Astralis. I'm Drakos, this is Vedius. The moment you've all been dreading. I don't know. I don't know how you guys do it. Nope, did it on the fly. Producer said in my ear, 2 seconds. Well, actually, as we went live, Vedi time or something. Vedi Dreddy time is what he said. He corrected me there. So
I'm going with Drakius, which is way cooler. You know what I mean?
Drakius is dope.
Or
that sounds
Drakos.
Both of these sounds like names I would have given to my Neopet account when I was like age 9.
I mean, also they could have been like a Bloodborne boss in my head.
Okay, all right,
you know
that's
what I mean?
fine. Yeah, all right, that's fair. I appreciate the shout out.
Anyway, we're
side note,
casting some League of Legends today.
Absolutely are. Now, Rogue versus Astralis, you might expect it to be a one-sided matchup, and you might be right, but we're going to have to see. We're going to have to experience it firsthand, as we are just moments away from Champion Select. A big question, can Astralis exceed our expectations? Rogue, do they have what it takes to close this one out? They are the favorites, clearly, but every time I feel like we've got a favorite, we always seem to find an upset in the LEC. Will this be one of those matches today?
Well, we're about to find out. Champion Select is on its way. Rogue right now, they've been on a bit of a tear. They, of course, do still have 2 losses so far this split, but honestly, they have looked very, very strong, very clean. They've been able to find great comebacks. Their early game continues to be dominant, and like, I would say that the most critical person, the person I'm most critical of would be Larssen. And when you think of that, like, Larssen is definitely not underperforming by any means. I just don't think that he's having the same sort of splits that he had last split, but Summer inspired Trymbi is having a phenomenal split so far, and I think like the core of this team seems to be consistent through and through.
Absolutely the case, Vedius. And as we look at the bans here, you can see some of bans already being focused at the bottom side, at Summer and Trymbi. You have both the Kalista and the Varus taken away, 2 of the strongest early game bot laners for getting that lane pressure. Rogue taking away some of the safer options. So we are going to see some of the tier 2, potentially tier 3 bot lane options come through, as now the Lucian has also been taken off the table, taken away most likely from MagiFelix, and the Thresh will be the final ban.
Now Rumble is of course still up and available alongside the Gwen. I wonder if Astralis... Oh, Akali. Right, forgot about Akali. Still very powerful. Likely going in the hands of Larssen. We don't get to see very many Larssen Akali games, but he is still very proficient at the champion. This will, of course, mean that by going for the Akali, you are likely giving up the Gwen to either WhiteKnight or MagiFelix, but it seems that Rogue is more than happy to make that trade.
It'll be interesting to see what WhiteKnight opts to do here. Of course, his most successful pick so far in this season has been the Lee Sin. Is the Gwen something that they're comfortable flexing? Obviously saw caps on it yesterday while they couldn't find the win. There were some strong moments from the champion overall, and Vedius said, hey, we want to see more from Larssen this split. Well, this is certainly an opportunity to show us more. The Akali, very big, very massive playmaking pick, is Nocturne first pick on red side, getting more and more common. The most popular top laner in our league right now, and I haven't gotten to be on a Vedi Nocturne cast yet, so you're going to say some stuff that I'm not going to understand that's going to pertain to you and, well, now the large portion of the league population that play Nocturne.
And you only get stronger next patch, but of course we are still on 11.12 for the time being. And we talked about the Gwen a little bit early on. This is why I'm personally a little bit surprised by the Nocturne pick, but we do know that even Odoamne himself has picked Ignite TP Nocturne into the Gwen up top, and it seems to be that Astralis is saying, listen, we're quite happy playing into this matchup. But when you kind of just look at what Rogue have got for themselves, 2 very powerful solo carry laners, and we're going to get to see Odoamne. I believe this is his first Gwen game of the split. He often doesn't get to play one of these super carry champions, but they're going to round out their first half of the draft with another super carry champion for Summer with the Draven.
And this has to be the biggest individual solo lane flex, not in terms of picks I've seen in a while, because you've got one of the strongest solo lanes in Akali, the most successful mid laner, Gwen, who is, I think, generally considered to be the most powerful champion on the patch, even if she hasn't found that much success, and you've got Summer's signature pick to back it up. Now, respect to Astralis, they've got a strong start to a composition here, but when it comes to showing off, Rogue have all the tools necessary to do so.
They certainly do. Now, with jungler already locked in for Astralis, it does of course mean that they can start banning out some junglers. The Diego going to be taken off the board. Thinking about other options that they could consider as well. There's a lot of AP damage, so something like a Diana is probably not what they're looking at. They could consider banning away the Lee Sin if they think that that's something that Inspired could go towards. Think about other potential AD junglers. Volibear is a potential if they want something that can act as that hard engage. Inspired has such a deep pool, it's difficult really to ban him out. and we know him very well for a lot of his AP junglers. You know, this split alone, he's played Rumble, Fiddle, Gragas, and then he's got that one Kindred game, and that respect to Lee Sin is going to be taken away from him. So I'm curious, what will he bring out? I imagine it's going to be something new. The question is, what will it be?
AD jungle options, it's a good question, Vedius. With Zen already off the board, with a lot of the AD jungle options not feeling super impactful, it's going to be digging deep into the champion pool to find something. Both the Kog'Maw and the Lulu banned away. Don't want to give Astralis any kind of late game scaling out when it comes to these compositions or any kind of safe lane to deal with this Draven. That said, Astralis will find a way. They played the Senna Galio, I believe it was, yesterday. So maybe they just try this again. Obviously can be strong in the first few levels. Maybe stop Hansama and Trymbi from taking over the lane, which when we get into game is something we're going to keep our eyes on because they have been so aggressive and so dominant in so many early games.
They certainly have. There are a lot of support options available for Trymbi. Leona, Nautilus, Rel, all very powerful that really enable the Draven. And I think that right now that is sort of what Rogue is missing. Hard engaged.
Oh, yeah. That's what he played yesterday. Kindred.
Kindred, yeah. Okay, so I thought that he would go for something a little bit different because when I look at this composition, the first thing I think of is like very squishy. You know, you've got a lot of dueling champions, a lot of like independent agency, I would say, but not the best frontline. Now, what we did see yesterday from Inspired was how he used his Kindred ultimates to sort of counter a lot of the all-in dive that is very prevalent in the current meta, and I think that against a Nocturne Rumble, the Kindred ultimate can be very, very powerful. We'll see how it works out for Rogue this time around, because I think that in terms of execution, this is a very difficult composition to pull off, but Rogue is the team that I think we would have the most faith in when it comes to executing a comp like.
And we look back at last season, they were trying all sorts of different compositions. They were playing very, very weak, very vulnerable glass cannon style 1-3-1 comps with Odoamne on the Jayce. They were one of the few teams to really try that out last split, see if it can kind of come to fruition as they've been steadily improving over the course of last split and into this split. But it is now the Galio for promisq. Obviously some nice interactions in terms of the magic damage shield up against threats like Akali as well as the Gwen. On top of that, you have the ulti, which you can, if you're lucky, place on top of a Kindred ulti. That said, again, bit of execution on the side of Astralis is going to be important here. And as always, Vedius, early game is going to be big against the Gwen, against the Akali. If these champions get ahead, if Rogue get to play out their signature aggressive kind of snowbally early game, it's going to be hard for Astralis to bring it back in the mid game.
Well, what I think is interesting is how, when I look at Rogue's comp, I was thinking, okay, well, in terms of the solo laners, they're going to scale extremely well. The Kindred also going to scale well, and also how the ultimate kind of mitigates a lot of the diving power that Astralis have in their back pocket. But then you see the Senna on the other side, you're like, oh, okay, that late game is always going to exist. Rumble can also do a lot of damage, but I think I still give the scaling advantage slightly towards the side of Rogue, largely that assuming that they can actually split up the map. In the 5v5, I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but I think that this is such a... It's not a traditional comp. You don't have that standard front to back, and it's definitely going to be very exciting to watch. We're jumping in for Rogue versus Astralis in our third game of the day.
Here we are, onto the Rift. Oh, Vedius.
Yes.
It's a cornucopia of talking points, man. We can go anywhere. There's so many interesting matchups. It's crazy when the most boring pick in this game is Rumble Jungle. Like 3 months ago, that was like the craziest thing imaginable.
Yes, true.
And in the context of this game, you know, it's pretty standard. Of course, the Predator for Zanzarah, a little bit of a unique one, but ready to see how Inspired handles this matchup. He did well yesterday, but that said, Vedi, I think we have to talk about the bottom lane. I think we have to talk, and it's not just because Draven's there, but also because Rogue's bottom lane, to put it simply, they kill people.
Yes, they do. You can see that they have the most 2v2 kills in our league, and that is just straight up 2 versus 2, sitting at 7. They were high last split. They sat in second place for most of the split behind Hylissang and Upset. But given that Hylissang and Upset haven't quite been as aggressive, the Rogue bot lane has kind of stayed true to form. And I think that Trymbi's consistency really has leveled up compared to last split. That rookie being invested in, kind of growing alongside Hansama. And it was funny when we got some interviews with him where he was like, I was a little bit more of a passive player. I was a little bit more like making sure getting through the laning phase. Then I met Hansama, and Hansama was like, we can fight, we can fight, we can fight, we can fight, and eventually you just kind of give in to the chaos and you're just more willing to go for those 2v2 exchanges, and it's been working out very well for them. And when you get a Draven Braum, a very powerful 2 versus 2, if the Galio ever commits, the re-engage from this Rogue duo is terrifying.
Yeah, and obviously a bit of a high-stakes lane for both sides in the sense that Draven going to be stacking up gold value on the cash out, always going to want to look for that one, innately put some focus on the bottom lane. If Astralis kill him, that takes away half the stacks, but if Hansama gets a kill, not only will he snowball just from the kill gold, but the massive influx of gold from the Draven passive just means that this lane is that much more volatile. Good news though, Vedius, is we saw this lane yesterday. Jeskla and promisq, they were mostly chilling. They were mostly okay in the early game until dives threats really started to come through because Senna's got a lot of range. Galio, well, I'm holding that thought. I might be completely wrong here, Betty. I was about to say it's really chill. They're almost
dead. Didn't they die 2v2 yesterday?
But they've had to push for like 3 levels, and that's a positive start, Betty.
That's definitely true. I think Senna is a very powerful laner, or definitely can be, especially with certain supports, but into a Braum it becomes that much harder for the supports to get aggressive. Quickly having a look at the junglers, you can see that that ward did come down from WhiteKnight after the prio that he was able to get. I think that they have some information on where Inspired started. Did a full topside clear into red buff. Now he's hovering around mid, seeing if he can get anything early for Larssen in the mid lane.
See MagiFelix, small CS lead here as Inspired leaps forward. Maybe just trying to make a little bit of space for Larssen to play with, but not really a whole lot going to come from that one. So a little bit of time burned as Zanzarah just continues to try to full clear his jungle. MagiFelix, again, pulling ahead in experience, pulling ahead in CS as expected here in the early lane matchup.
Very standard stuff in terms of the 1 versus 1. Zanzarah recognizes that, hey, I don't have push in the bot lane. I'm not even going to try and contest this bot side scuttle. Instead, I'm going to go up towards the top side. So nothing too crazy happening in this early game. Zanzarah is going to get a little bit more information in the top side jungle. Looks like he's actually going to replenish that ward. So there are now 2 wards sitting there. So he wants to make sure that he knows when Inspired is back up doing that Grom and have full information on what he is up to. Inspired, I think he was a little unlucky on his mark there. It did end up spawning on the top side. But all in all, pretty even early game. The Akali not too far behind. Odoamne a little bit ahead just because WhiteKnight choosing to do a bit of an early reset will mean that he has a slight CS advantage. This could be big.
Taunt not going to connect. Body block there for Trymbi just to try to make it a positive trade, but just a little bit of healing coming in early on from the Senna Q does mean overall it's not too bad. Hansama running low on mana will be a problem if the lane phase goes too long. If he drops those axes, he may not have enough to go for the recast here.
Well, they were able to get the heal out from Jeskla, so overall positive trade for the Rogue 2 versus 2. Keep in mind on what the junglers are still up to because they're usually the key facilitators and making stuff happen. We can see Inspired's made his way into the bottom lane. I think for the time being he's just covering. The wave is pushing close though, so he's thinking, hey, there may be an opportunity here, but I need to now reset because my topside camps have respawned. I need to get to clearing. As you can see from Zanzarah, he's already done the same. Gotten himself the upgraded boot with the Predator, which is one of the common, well, I'd say less common. Usually we see the Conqueror often on the Rumble, but still a viable choice, especially if you're looking to gank early.
And very much to Zanzarah's playstyle. He is a guy that likes to gank. He has never been, it seems, at least from playstyle alone, a fan of the power-clearing junglers. And while he is ahead in CS right now, you can see already making his way down to the bottom side, looking to get a bit of pressure down. Realizes that he's been spotted by the ward, but it's not going to stop promisq from committing a little bit here. Good taunt, good follow-up, but Trymbi going to get the heal from Hansama and just dash back out to safety.
Even with vision, Astralis were able to get something small off the back of that, so well played by them. Meanwhile, pressure continues to mount in the mid lane. Larssen likely going to be using his teleport soon, wants to get a little bit back. And these days, you'll see a lot of Akalis prefer to run the Conqueror over the fleet footwork. It does make your laning phase that bit harder, but the value gained is so much more later into the game, especially once you get that first item completed in the Riftmaker and that level 6, when you have some very serious kill threat that Larssen can look to use. But for the time being, relatively slow, no major leads built up. And yeah, Rogue bot lane yet to get a 2 versus 2 kill. Still got another 9 minutes though to get another pre-2 versus 2 kill if they want to try and keep the record clean.
And it's been interesting because I think generally we get so used to seeing these explosive Rogue early games that seeing them slow down a bit always catches me a little bit off guard. Whoops, we're going to toss that one back up. Call that one an oopsie. Because Rogue, they're just massively far ahead in the early game. They've usually got a solid KDA. We might see a bit of a fight here over the Crab. You can see, though, Astralis, on the other hand, usually very, very far behind. Astralis, of course, the team that started very well in our league, but since that 2-1 start has just been losing games left and right, now on a 3-game losing streak.
Larssen uses TP in, connects the E and the ult.
Big damage there. Goes invisible here. Can use the second stack of the ult. I don't think it's going to be enough to find the kill, however. Forced to back away, but the pressure there does mean that the Scuttle Crab will go over to Inspired, and that is a mark for the Kindred, so small win for Rogue. Does cost them a decent amount, however.
If Zanzarah had disengaged just a little bit later, that likely would have been his life, but he was able to respond in time. The TP doesn't get a kill. Larssen doesn't really lose much off the back of it because he's able to get good damage down onto MagiFelix and Zanzarah, but it looks like he is going to try. Oh, he cancels his reset, actually. I think he recognized that the wave has been in an awkward spot. But I think he believed that MagiFelix would clear out that wave and then reset, and there was an opportunity for him to get another quick reset in, but that will be denied from him. MagiFelix choosing to stay. Top lane, small advantage for Odoamne, and so the game continues to stay relatively even.
Yeah, kind of crazy. Akali backing, just getting the boots. MagiFelix has not even backed yet. Still has the single health potion there. The resource he's used the most of in this lane is mana, just to keep the push and the harass up. But not too volatile, not too explosive yet. The later it goes, though, it does feel like it's probably going to be easier for Larssen to find kill threat, if not on MagiFelix, on someone else. As you saw, damage wasn't big on Zanzarah yet, but as he gets some items, it might be. Odoamne using top lane pressure to move in, looking to contest his red buff. Zanzarah now walking forward. Hit the blast cone, though, so there's no escapement. promisq and Jeskla are in the area. They can get this one kicked off. A taunt king ready to come over the wall. Inspired now running for his life, but that Gwen damage is so much. First blood for Odoamne, and now the Kindred ult is coming in. It's Trymbi in the midst of everyone, but he's level 5. Flash over the wall from Inspired. It's clean. He made his way out to safety, but still, Astralis coming out on top of the platform from promisq. They're not done yet. Trymbi goes down. The flash out from Larssen. He's been snared over the wall, but Astralis, they're not going to follow for that one.
Ends up being a 2-for-1 in favor of Astralis, and they will likely convert this into the Rift Herald. Good collapse from them, recognizing that Rogue, they overstepped their bounds, and they were not respecting the reset from Jeskla and promisq. Hansama stays in the bot lane, and he's looking to get a bit of action himself. No flash on WhiteKnight, but he's able to disengage. Good stuff overall for Astralis, but looks like Rogue. Oh, hang on, WhiteKnight.
Very bold for WhiteKnight to stick around here. He's going to use the spell shield on one half of the Draven ult. The first half does still hit. That's big damage. The fear is going to come out, but Hansama tanking the tower means there's no follow-up kill. The tower gets nothing done. Rogue taking control in the bottom lane.
Cleanly done from Hansama, and we'll talk about that in a second because we need to look at the mini-map right now. You can see that all 5 members of Astralis are in the top side. Inspired, as you rightly identified, clears out the blast cone, which actually removes Odoamne's big escape tool. WhiteKnight doesn't have a huge amount of mana, which is a large part of why he ends up dropping here. But then the rest of the collapse comes through. Good Kindred ultimate buys a little bit of time, but Larssen, without having his ultimate, there's no real way for them to win this fight, especially at a numbers disadvantage. And the flash commit from Astralis to make sure they get that additional kill means that initially they come out on top, but then the play in bot lane happens. Hansama cashes in a huge amount of cash. And if we go quickly look at the gold, please observers, we can see that Hansama is sitting at 3.7k gold, which is more than his top laner.
Yeah. That's a big deal. And honestly, the big loser in this whole exchange, Vedius, is WhiteKnight. He dies in that fight at the start, leaping in onto Odoamne, and to be fair, we've all made that mistake. Gwen does Gwen things. It catches a lot of people off guard, but then immediately TP's bottom lane, gets dove, trying to get CS back, and really just feels like he's going to be in a position to suffer. The CS is close, but he lost so much experience on that play.
Yep, he certainly did. And he is going to suffer now because this matchup is very volatile. And the thing about Gwen is, like, I was going to say, I'm not that surprised that we're seeing a slow early game. Akali, not the most dominant laner.
Yeah.
Gwen, she can be powerful in lane, but that's usually her weakest point relative to where she is and like how she scales as a champion. And Kindred, like, definitely can gank, but not one that, you know, needs to find ganks in order to succeed. She can just focus on farming up, scaling up, has the sort of long-range carry that she is. But then we had that huge fight, and it's Rogue that's kind of benefiting off the back of that, because now so many of these individuals are going to be accelerated, and Astralis are trying to answer. They have the ultimate, they're going for Hans, but likely not going to get anything off the back of it. So Astralis, they try to make something happen. Unfortunately, it doesn't pay off.
Yeah, really get nothing from that exchange. A bit of pressure makes it free for Jeskla to push back. Hansama is forced to recall, but isn't going to hurt them too much. Inspired just going to grab an objective in the meantime. You can see only 1 mark for the Kindred. Now, yesterday, Inspired was at a crazy pace in the early game. I believe he had 3 marks by about 6 minutes, just on some good camp spawns and a successful play. He was able to grab an assist, so a bit slower this time around. But as you mentioned, Vedius, he's got time, he's got room to work. These lanes, okay playing a little bit slower. Jayce going to be really scary at 1 item. It's a similar story for Akali. That said, as mentioned already, still very volatile. If you make a single mistake, it is definitely going to cost you dearly. Akali's able to win out in a skirmish, or Jayce is, either way.
Yeah, and I think that, like, the mid to late game is really where we're going to see so much more action. Larssen in a bit of a dangerous spot here. He's passively going to take a lot of damage, going to be forced to use his ultimate, and the Kindred ultimate will come out just to make sure that Larssen is safe, but he's going to be forced back most likely, won't have the teleport, which means that this is a great opportunity for Astralis. You can see that Jeskala's actually rotated down, going to grab himself a couple souls, and they're going to get themselves a plate as well, and there's little that Larssen can do to defend.
Astralis playing this early game pretty well. Yes, they are still at a gold deficit as the ulti comes out from Jeskla.
Block there from Trymbi. Yeah. I was wondering why Larssen didn't take any damage. But,
I forgot you could block that.
I honestly didn't even realize that you could, but there you go. Today we learned.
It's a very fast projectile, not a Xerath Q, which is this instantaneous cast thing.
Yep.
Wow. We're learning here on the caster desk, and it appears Astralis are as well, because again, pretty solid, pretty clean early game overall from Astralis. Yes, they've made a few mistakes. Yes, Rogue pulled ahead in a few different places, but in general, Astralis has been falling pretty far behind pretty fast, especially when you look at their games yesterday. So keeping composed, keeping it together on their second match of the week is, I think, a good sign from this team.
Larssen's reset just keeps getting interrupted. He will, of course, now have the TP, so it's not the worst thing in the world. But yeah, I think Astralis is a pretty interesting team, largely because last split, everyone expected them to just finish in 10th place, finish in a position where they couldn't really do anything, and they were, you know, kind of dead weight in the league. But I think that towards the end of the split especially, they really started to gain some traction. They really started to work well as a team and challenge. And I think that in this game too, well, in this split, I think that they've started off quite strong. They've shown some promise, but still some core weaknesses in a lot of their decision-making. And in particular, I think that bot lane has struggled in the 2 versus 2 laning, especially in the early game. For now, though, they've kept things relatively even, which is definitely a good position to be in. If they can get this Senna towards the late game, and if they can execute this comp well, there's windows in which they can definitely build big advantages. But as long as this Gwen and Akali continue to get strong, that's my biggest concern. How will they find ways to manage these 2 big power threats in Odoamne and Larssen?
Yeah, it's pretty easy to play Legal Edge as a kind of an arm's length when you're just moving across the map and you're making macro movements. You know, it can be very textbook, it can get very stressful, but when an Akali dives into your backline, that's a split-second decision. You need to be on the ball, you need to be ready to go. It's a similar story for Gwen, and making mistakes in those circumstances makes it so easy for Rogue with this composition, which, as you highlighted, very good in 1-3-1, very good in skirmishes, allows them to just tear your team apart if you're mispositioning.
Yeah, I think that fights are mainly going to be interesting because when you look at Astralis' comp, it's quite straightforward, right? People press R and they go in. Whereas when you look at Rogue's comp, it's like, okay, well, they have some decent disengage tools. They have some pretty powerful skirmishing power. And I don't think that their team fighting is inherently weak. I just think it's a lot harder to execute on because you don't get to start fights in the traditional sense. There's no just press R and go. So we see Larssen once again using his R to get to safety as Zanzarah was hovering around mid lane. I think that their comp is much better at re-engaging, finding flanks, waiting for Astralis to commit all of their ultimates. Then once everything is burnt, you look for an opportunity to start the fight up again and you chase down with your pretty mobile champions. But then the question becomes, can you actually survive that initial engage for the opportunity to get a good re-engage as well? So that's kind of what I'm keeping my eyes on. And with the Drake spawning in about a minute's time, that's kind of what we're looking at to where the teams can play for. Of course, you can see that this top tower is relatively low. There is a window where Rogue may very well just sacrifice that bot side, instead focus towards top. We can see that Inspired is pathing up towards there, investing a bit of vision, and instead he's just going to use his priority to get himself this objective. And this is great pre-Drake, because remember, it's a very easy way to game prio. You drop this mid lane, now Astralis is in this situation where they're like, oh, this thing is knocking on our towers, and it's not just a lost wave, it is this huge behemoth that is charging at our towers, and we're going to take a lot of damage if we don't answer it. So it can be a very effective way at actually getting mid-prio and challenging that ocean.
I like it. If the timing works out, it'll be just a kind of nice little macro flex coming in from Rogue. If they're able to grab the Herald, drop the Herald, use that pressure to get a Drake free and clear, it would just be excellent sign that Rogue continue to be very dominant when it comes to the map game.
And again, notice that Hans Summer resets just the right time as well. He's completed the Essence Reaver, so he's got that first core item. Akali, the same, and you just kind of look at the itemization across the board. Everything has started to come through for Rogue, but the same can be said for Astralis. So both teams primed and ready. They're looking for this next big fight, and this could be the big swing factor that decides who controls the game for the next foreseeable future.
Yeah, and I have to draw attention to the big, obviously the equalizer is going to be massive, but also Hans Sama level 10 to the level 8 of Jeskla. promisq just barely hitting level 9 here, so that said, Astralis pretty good at controlling the space with the Galio, with the Rumble ult, so it looks like Rogue might just give this one up. It's going to be a fast Dragon take from Astralis. This one will not be contested, or will it? The Whirling Death will not find it, so Astralis grabbed this one, but Rogue not really looking to respond too much here, not even dropping the Herald.
So I honestly expected Rogue to just drop the Herald there and actually just make that trade happen as
Slicer. He's going to be in trouble trying to dash back on safety, but he leaps right into Zanzarah. He's getting burned down in his Shroud. Ooh, smoked Akali. Not one I've had before, but there she goes.
3 members committed towards the bot lane as another fight happens in mid.
Now you can have the Herald on the top side. Hansama getting aggressive, but promisq just zooming out to safety. Shirelli is making sure that he can get back, stay safe. Now the wave clear is not fantastic from a Galio and a Senna, but it might be enough to stop the push as the Herald continues to move in on the top side. Meanwhile, the collapse from Kindred is coming in, inspired on the way. No camps for him to take, but potentially could threaten the dive.
Keep your eyes on Trymbi and Hansama here. A Q does land onto Jeskla, could be big.
1, 2, waiting. Not gonna be able to follow that one up, and Rogue just gonna push in, just gonna take this wave, and it looks like back away. Or at least they should. Zanzarah is in the area. Maybe they can punish if Rogue want to overcommit here. Hansama steps forward for that CS, but decides better of it.
Okay, so in the end, Astralis find themselves a kill, Rogue get themselves 2 towers, and Astralis cannot answer any towers anywhere else. So in the gold game, Rogue come out hugely ahead. So why didn't they fight the Drake? Well, I think the main reason is that even though they'd had a lot of their core itemization completed, as we mentioned, their front-to-back teamfight comp is not as easy to execute as say Astralis' composition is. You need like a lot of good setup, you need a lot of good execution, and I think that with Astralis having prio in the river, having that initial control, walking into them is not what Rogue wanted to do. Funneling into those choke points, putting themselves in a position where Astralis could take control, why bother? Instead, why not try and rely on some of the scaling aspects that you do have? Try and get this Gwen super strong in the side lane. Make sure that Larssen can't really be challenged in the 1 versus 1, and instead just funnel more gold, open up the map. By taking these towers, you can get deeper vision in as well, and you can use Hansama to keep bullying Jeskla, trying to keep him down. So I think the idea was to make that trade-off, but they will have to fight at some point, because those Drake, to be fair, the Drakes aren't in a super scary position right now, which makes giving up the Drake even more worth it, because there's nothing that they're immediately afraid of.
And I think that Rogue, they've got plenty of time to work, right? If they want to scale up, if they want to just wait a little bit longer, whereas Astralis, they're making some plays, certainly. Jeskla, though, at 77 souls here, going to stack more and more. Remember, the soul stacking has taken a bit of a hit. It's now 20 range per 20 souls instead of 25. So a little bit weaker, but still the late game terror that we know her to be if the Senna is given enough time to scale up. So see who really wants to proactively make the first move here. It's been a bit of just a back and forth, bit of trades across the map, and Rogue continue to come out on top in the gold, as you've highlighted, but Astralis keep making plays nonetheless.
Yeah, and this is the other big thing, right? Ooh, it's a bit of a skirmish happening in the bot lane.
Pull back there. Needlework not going to amount to too much, just trying to force MagiFelix away as Odoamne clears the wave there.
Let's use the Ignite in the 1 versus 1. Ult comes down.
Ulti going to come in. Galio now on the way in as well, but that's going to be the flash upon Hansama. The fear is there. Jeskla trying to follow up, but just not quite finding the CC that they needed to make that work.
They will get all of the summoners out from Hansama though, which is a very big deal. No ult used by Inspired. Ult comes through to try and get his red back, but Zanzarah is going to smite that one away. And Astralis should be able to take this bot tier 1. The question is, can Rogue actually answer with anything for their own? I like that Jeskla and promisq actually moved back into the mid lane to hold that wave. But Zanzarah could be in some danger here. Good cover from Jeskla.
TP now coming in. It's going to go. It's Larssen on the flank, maybe looking to get something done. Shuriken Flip's going to be big here. Odoamne on the bottom side looking to fight MagiFelix. Keep in mind, Odoamne has a lot of damage. Can he finish the job before the TP comes in? And yes, they can! Fighting against the clock, MagiFelix will get taken down.
MagiFelix realized that he wasn't going to win in a sustained 1v1 against the Gwen, so tries to disengage as quickly as he can. Unfortunately for him, Inspired is primed and ready to punish him in the bot lane. So Rogue get themselves a quick kill answer back. And now with numbers, they're looking to try and get themselves the mid tier 1.
Pushing in with 3 members, just Jeskla and promisq. promisq with a few more levels under his belt, of course, because he is with the Senna, who is not farming. So Winds of War does some decent damage here, enough to stop any further pressure as Jeskla just keeps grabbing souls. He's at 87 now. We'll keep checking in as he gets later and later into the game. But with Odoamne on 2 items, with Akali getting closer and closer to what appears to be Azania's hourglass, it is feeling like Rogue side lanes are pretty comfortable in this one.
They certainly are. To me, the really interesting aspect of this is like what comes out on top, you know? The Senna late game or the Gwen late game. You know, I think that like level-wise, you can see that there's a bit of an advantage in favor of the Gwen, but they're just such powerful late game tools for such different reasons. It's really exciting to see how they'll actually stack up against each other and which one will end up coming out on top. And we're yet to see a huge team fight, a lot of little skirmishes, a couple trades back and forth, a couple picks, but the next Drake is spawning in. Looks like both teams have their eyes set on it. WhiteKnight is making his way up through the bottom river. Didn't actually push out that wave. The mid contest is still going strong for both sides.
WhiteKnight moving down. Astralis now backing off. Jeskla has to be careful here. Gonna try to walk, but you see it just by the edge. Big damage coming in, but there's a response from the Rumble. Inspire getting burnt down very low. Astralis now backing off, now looking to fight this one. Now he's in the midst of the entire team. Larssen buying a bit of space. Goes golden, waiting for a brief moment, but he just gets taken down. WhiteKnight now in the midst of everyone, leaping forward with the stride breaker. Trymbi trying to run out to safety, flashing away to avoid the fear, and Astralis, they've taken the fight.
Big blunder there from Larssen. He ends up committing into multiple members of Astralis, and he just immediately gives away his life. The follow-up from Rogue is not that strong. Remember, they want Astralis to engage into them and then go for the re-engage when a lot of the ultimates have already been used. They didn't actually find that re-engage, but now Odo has found Zanzarah.
Odoamne coming over the wall. Dragon gonna be picked up by Zanzarah. He's gonna be okay with that one, but it's the needlework. It's the Gwen. Just gonna snippety snip him down to size as Zanzarah gets taken out.
Snippety snip, Zanzarah, you are rip. Beautiful stuff from
Bars. Han's in trouble. Remember, no flash from earlier, as you highlighted, Vedius. Good damage coming in from the Senna. She's getting scarier and scarier, but the Braum is there to body block. Hansama still in trouble. Hansama gets taken down. Reverse Justice Punch to finish it, but Rogue still find the fight. promisq getting picked up in the exchange. Not a positive trade for Astralis.
Inspired gets himself 2 kills, and now he's got himself 4 marks. They are making their way towards the Baron, and they're going to start this one off. Gwen plus Kindred, pretty fast take, especially this early into the game. Let's see if Astralis can answer. Of course, Zanzarah has only just respawned. I don't know if MagiFelix and WhiteKnight can challenge this.
He's got the Predator, but he hasn't watched enough F1 for this one. 3K getting lower, no room to take this one away. Miracle Shock Blast will not be enough. Trymbi just playing Pong, making sure that one can't make it into the pit. The Natcher goes down, and Rogue have cemented a massive lead in this game.
Yeah, I think that right now, Inspired and Odoamne are having a very solid game. Hansama, his primary role in this game has been farming and trying not to die. He has been attacked a fair amount, but the Gwen and the Kindred really making up for some of the mistakes that we have been seeing from Larssen. You know, we talked a little bit about it, how he hasn't really had the best split, and we've seen a couple of mistakes from him this game, which, you know, this was his Akali game. This is a big opportunity for him to have a high impact, and so far he hasn't been able to do that. Still a decent amount of the game left to go, but uncharacteristic performance, I would say, this season so far from Larssen.
Most certainly. And obviously Akali was the breakout pick in week 1. Instantly went from non-existent to incredibly overpowered, incredibly strong. And you can see here that Larssen may be struggling to execute on this one. And I think when you look at the enemy composition, it does make a bit of sense because you are playing against a Galio. In 2019, when Akali was really popular, people would pick Galio. And as long as Galio has taunt up, very hard for Akali to go in. She'll reveal herself in her own shroud if she gets taunted and the auto comes out. So difficult to play for Larssen, but again, the more the odds are stacked against him, the more it is an opportunity to prove himself that he is still one of the best mid laners in the league. It was him and Caps kind of in top 2 for all of last season as part of the discussion, and now with so many people rising up, with Leader's Rise performance against Caps yesterday, there's obviously a lot more names fighting for that top of the table mid lane spot.
And like, the reason why we bring this up, especially when Rogue is in such a dominant position, is like, it's very interesting, right? How like both Larssen and Caps don't seem to be having that same impact that they had in previous splits.
The pizzazz is gone.
The same pizzazz doesn't seem to be there. But that doesn't mean that their team is underperforming. Now he's in a 1v2. Let's see how he does.
Leaping out nearsighted. Goes golden, but he has the second use of the ultimate, so he can dash right back to safety. Got the ignite out, now has the shuriken flip to go back in. Gonna try to turn it, but it's just too much damage.
No flash available for Larssen, means that he will end up losing his life, but he will buy a little bit of space for his team. You can see the Gwen pushing in the bot lane, as the bot lane also pushes in mid. So overall, Rogue still benefiting from this. This is largely Astralis just trying to get something back on the map. So I definitely don't think that was a bad death for Larssen. But it will definitely be a huge net gain for Rogue as they look for another engage.
Forward, Odoamne off to the side. Jeskla has to be careful here. They're trying to isolate Odoamne. They're walking away. Needlework comes out, but Astralis just retreating. The tier 2's not there. Odoamne, the Shroud fades. He has to get out. MagiFelix now going forward. MagiFelix in hammer form, though. Can't really afford to poke. Has to be committed to the all-in, so he's just going to back away. Astralis walking off, but they've already lost the tier 2, so not really able to get anything back in exchange.
Odoamne playing that one with confidence, I would say. Without flash, walking into 3 members of Astralis saying, I'm willing to fight this, are you? And Astralis like, no, no we're not, we're good.
Next one.
We'll take the next one. But Rogue find themselves with another 2 towers, and they're continuing to mount that gold lead. Larssen going to move into a side lane. I don't think that he wins this 1v1 against MagiFelix right now. Picking up a little bit of magic resist on MagiFelix's side.
A bit of MagiPen too there with the lightning jewel coming in from Larssen.
Once he gets the Void, I definitely think that 1v1 becomes a little bit easier. But even the Jayce matchup, it was actually over in the LPR. I think it was Rookie initially that used it as an answer to the Akali when she was very popular. I think back in 2019.
Yep.
But yes, often considered a pretty strong side laner, and he scales very well, especially with the new itemization as well. So
certainly does. Hard to execute, you can say, as you get later in the game, but we've seen so many moments where when Jayce gets to do a full hammer combo into the middle of your backline uncontested, he can kill 3 people very, very quickly. The damage in the kit is crazy, but obviously very vulnerable, very squishy outside of those individual 1v1s. So eyes on MagiFelix to see what he can do, how he can perform. The other big scaling aspect is, of course, Jeskla and how he fits into Astralis' combo. promisq needs to keep him safe. Can they make this work? Because for now, Rogue have control of the Dragon area. They're going to grab the second Drake of the game, the Infernal. 4th Drake overall, however, but Astralis ready to contest this one. Early Equalizer, not amounting to a lot, and Rogue stepping forward. The Equalizer gone means they're feeling pretty comfortable to engage this fight, but Astralis just going to grab mid lane prio and potentially back off, but a big shock blast on Hansama. Him coming into this fight at 30%, 40% HP is going to be massive. Odoamne, that said, buying so much space with the Needlework, buying so much space with the Hollowed Mist, and now he's going to be in trouble. Leaps back out, final stack of Needlework. Now using the Zonius, it's Akali on the backside. All eyes on Larssen, all eyes on the Akali, getting away from the taunt, buying a bit more space. The fight so slow, so steady. No one is dying. It's so controlled.
So again, because Astralis never really hard committed to the fight initially, Rogue's then re-engage tools cannot be used as easily as they would have liked. Things like the Nocturne ultimate was there to disengage. You still also had promisq still holding onto his ultimate throughout that entire fight, and Rogue were afraid to fully commit because if Larssen just dives into 5, he could end up in the same situation that he was in earlier. So instead, no big fight actually breaks out. Even though Rogue really wanted to fight there, a lot of great damage coming out from Hansama and Odoamne. They don't quite have the engage tools they need to kind of start a fight on their terms. They are really relying on Astralis to overcommit, to really be the ones to close the gap for them so they can then turn the fight back in their favor.
And Vedi, there's not really a ton of reliable hard engage on either side. Galio much better at reacting than he is at proactive engage. Now you pair him with a Nocturne, it's going to feel pretty good.
The Nocturne goes in, Rumble ultimate, Galio ultimate, Senna ultimates, like it all comes together, you know what I mean?
But also, as noted, Astralis can just wait for Jeskla to have 1,000,000 souls.
They could.
They seem pretty comfortable. Until there's a 4th dragon on the table or another Baron, Astralis can also play very reactively. So it seems like we might just have a bit of a stalemate here in the engage department unless Astralis change their minds.
It's one of those really awkward moments where I'm like, a fight is coming, and then the two teams look at each other and they're like, any minute now. Any minute now.
Red Rover, send WhiteKnight right over. He's like, no.
Fight. See, senor.
Skip and slash. You've done the skip, you have to do the slash. Those are the rules. It doesn't say just skip. All right, they're saying chill for now. Vedius, we have a bit of downtime, I think, until the next big fight. As I say that, though,
right, then I have a very thought-provoking question for you.
Okay.
Have you ever wondered why weapons in League of Legends are so much proportionally larger than the people that wield them? There are multiple in this game. Braum, there's also Senna, there's Jayce, there's Gwen. Why are all the weapons so... In reality, these things are like twice their size.
I don't know. Producers told me not to fall for the bait, but I actually don't have a good answer for you, Vedius.
I don't know.
Senna's gun is obviously the most comic example, and she's huge. Jeskla, that said, his big gun is not going to save him if he gets knocked from across the wall. Equalizer coming down the Rogue. Have they overcommitted? Senna ult across the entire team.
No engage! You think a fight's going to happen, but it doesn't.
Wow.
Tension continues to mount.
Is this what a goalless football game feels like? It's just like back and forth.
I mean, yeah, but it comes back to the tools, right? Because Astralis realize that they're in a deficit, right?
Yeah.
So they have a lot of powerful engage tools, but a lot of that is off the back of the Nocturne engage. But if the Nocturne engages into a Braum, he realizes that he's kind of engaging into his death. So you have to make sure that the engage is good. So if they don't get a good engage, they then don't want to engage, and then Rogue's like, but we need you to engage so that we can then re-engage. And because neither of that is happening, you end up in a lot of these awkward stalemates where no fight actually happens. It's just a lot of trading of summoner spells and ultimates.
Yeah. And for now, a lot of the key carries still have their flashes up. Now, Jeskla not having his flash could be big in the fights to come, but we're going to have to keep our eyes on that one. Vedius, I have a question.
Okay.
The game has slowed down. Yeah. We've got space, as we've clearly highlighted a few times now. So I have a question for you and I have a question for chat, which is, does Astralis have more to show us? You can vote. You can let us know what you think. I think Astralis staying in this game, staying competitive in a lot of these fights. Yes, it's partially a product of the draft, but are they a team that's going to fall right back to the bottom after their 2-1 start on the 3-loss streak that there are now? Or is there more that they can show us? Because they kept the same roster, kind of expected to hit the ground running compared to a lot of the teams with roster swaps, and it's been a very mixed bag. So the question to everyone at home, the question to you, Vedius, is there more for that Astralis can show us?
Well, I would like to hope so, but there's always that question around like the skill ceiling of the individuals. Have we seen it yet? Yeah. You know, and obviously a lot of these players have actually been around the scene for a while. I look at WhiteKnight in particular. He's been playing since... we looked it up with... I don't know how I remember this fact, but I told Quickshot, I was like, do you remember the first time I saw WhiteKnight? He was like, when? Team Alternates, 2014. He was a sub. Back then, he didn't actually want to be a pro player. He just subbed in because he was friends with someone on Team Alternate, I think. And then, I think a couple years later, he then rejoined on a team, which I forget the name of. You may now see him engage.
No.
Nope.
They've turned the lights out, but it's very scary. Rogue want nothing to do with it. They're going to walk away.
So let's see if we can get the re-engage now, because that's a lot of engaged tools. This is where Rogue will now want to look to then counter-attack.
We want to re-engage. No, we want to re-engage. Guys, you can't both re-engage. Someone has to engage. Inspired, though, is going to grab a free Drake. So right now, Rogue are winning out of this one pretty clearly.
Here we go. The trade for the Baron.
Is it a 50-50, though? Can they get anyone in the area and into the pit? Now, Inspired is on the way, but it's 6K. It's getting lower. They're burning through it. It's going to be hard for Astralis to fight in this pit, though. If they get caught up, the Akali might have room to work. Can they steal it? No! Zanzarah has taken it away. If they win the fight, this is going to be massive. But WhiteKnight caught in the midst of everybody. They're getting absolutely shredded. promisq, the ulti is canceled. WhiteKnight gets nothing in the midst of it. It's 2 Barons for a triple kill and a 3rd Drake. I call that a bad deal.
It certainly was. Drakos, Astralis. They ended up finally getting a fight, but not the one that they were looking for, I don't think. Rogue dominate in the 5 versus 5, and even though 2 members of Astralis walk away with the Baron, this should still be enough for Rogue to actually break into the base and start causing some serious damage. Good wave clear there from MagiFelix. So actually, maybe they can hold on for long enough for their teammates to respawn, and it looks like they will. Rogue gonna continue to back away for now. So let's have a look back at this one. So obviously they start off the Baron in exchange for the 3rd Drake. They're able to secure it as the smite is not in range. And then we see this initial engage from Odoamne soaking up a huge amount of damage thanks to the W. MagiFelix is forced to immediately disengage, and the front line just gets melted. Good damage coming out from Larssen. I think it was just a matter of who could get those last hits in the pits, because all of Rogue was there, primed and ready to dish out the damage and melt the lineup of Astralis.
And just an absolute meat grinder. And again, when we look at Jeskla as one of the big damage sources getting later into the game, he's at 2.5 items now. He needs space to work. All that range is not worth a lot if you're stuck in melee range in the Baron pit. So maybe Astralis can find another fight here, but for now, things definitely looking pretty stacked against them. Rogue holding on to about a 7K gold lead in this game. A little bit less, but Astralis still suffering here. Larssen, is he going to commit on this one? As long as promisq has the taunt up, it is hard for Larssen and Odoamne to go in.
Both teams just posturing around the mid lane for now. The Baron is, of course, up. Astralis using this as an opportunity to buy a little bit of time. WhiteKnight going to catch the top wave. And again, the standoff continues. So observers, can we have a quick check-in on Jeskala's stacks, see what point he is at? So I believe he's getting very, very close to a lot.
What even are the new break points after all?
I forgot.
It's hard to know. It used to be like 100, felt pretty good. Now it's probably more than that as the range differences come through.
But I still think that when you see like 150, you know,
you're sweating.
That's when I'm kind of like...
Zanzarah, right into the scissors. That's not where he wants to be. He's in a giant robot, but the scissors still cut through him. Inspired gonna grab that one. Now Odoamne is on the hunt, trying to free fire a little bit more here. Last stack of the ulti now coming out. Needlework getting some work done in this one. promisq gets taken down. Jeskla, another name on the list. It's all too easy for Rogue. They break open Astralis and they just shred through them.
They finally get another good fight and they absolutely clean house. 4 members of Astralis end up falling short, and 5 members of Rogue are now making their way towards the enemy nexus. They're looking to get themselves to 5-2, sit towards the top of the table here in the LEC, and continue to dominate.
While Astralis found some opportunities to fight back, ultimately Rogue more consistent in their execution, finding the Baron, finding the 3rd Dragon, finding the fight, and now finding the win. Inspired healing up here just out of tower range. WhiteKnight gonna leap in, but he mistimes it. and that means it's going to be an ace for Rogue and a clean finish at the end of this game. All 5 members take that back. 4 members of Astralis knocked out.
Well, we didn't get as many fights as we were hoping for, but a part of that nature of the composition and just a lot of back and forth. Both teams kind of wanted to rely on their late game scaling aspect. We can see a couple times where it was kind of Astralis wanted to engage, Rogue was kind of like, please, engage. We'd love that. And then Astralis was like, we'd rather not. But then it was Rogue that was consistently picking up those objectives, controlling the map that much better. And even though they ended up losing the Baron, that was then their opportunity to get a really great fight, which they picked Astralis apart in, and they were able to snowball off the back of that. So overall, very well played from Rogue. And to kind of go back to your earlier question, I think that Astralis is a big question mark for me, because I think that for us coming into the split, Misfits was not the team that we expected to kind of rise up as they have done. And I thought that they, along with XL, SK, and Schalke would be kind of like fighting for that 5th spot, potentially even the 5th, 6th spot for playoffs. And I think that Astralis is still in that conversation, but now it's so much harder because of Vitality seems to be on that upswing.
Absolutely.
Misfits is sitting at the very top of the table. And so like a lot of the competition around them has kind of rapidly gone up, and while they have made some improvements, it doesn't seem to be to the same magnitude as the people around them.
Improving, but not improving at the same rate as the competition around them. Ultimately, the poll was 70% against Astralis in that one, not thinking that they had anything else, 30% in their favor. We'll see if they can use and leverage that 30% of those of you who believe to find some wins in the weeks to come. But for now, it's going to close out this week for them. Kia player of the game at LEC on Twitter. What are these 3 Rogue players, Odo, Inspired, or Hans? Not really any bad options.
All good, solid choices.
Yeah.
Give it to Odo.
Why not? Odo,
I'll
he
make
needs
Ender
more.
happy.
Make Ender happy. Make Odo happy. We need to see some Odo smiles. Vitality shocked everyone, though, by crushing G2 yesterday. And after the break, a new challenge awaits as they take on the reigning champions, Mad Lions. Don't go anywhere. You don't want to miss this one.
Through this, what comes next will be marvelous.
welcome back to LEC Summer. That's another win in the books for Rogue, and Odoamne is with me to talk about this victory and the week. Overall, thank you very much for joining me, Odo. The last time we had a chat, you were playing Nocturne into Gwen. This time you played Gwen into Nocturne. So can you let me know about the matchup, your insights about it maybe? And yeah, when is it better, on which side?
I mean, I think it's definitely winnable for both sides. Nocturne has quite a big early win condition that if he gets to play really aggressive, he can kill me and snowball on me before I start getting online. But I don't know, it's kind of like 50-50, I would say. If I manage to survive until like level 5, I think the threat is kind of over, and Rumble Nocturne isn't really that threatening because I can just W Rumble ult if it ever comes. So yeah, there's definitely dive potential early game for Nocturne and ways to snowball, but you have very specific and tiny windows where you can abuse the Gwen, and if you don't use them, she's just gonna take over.
I see. And you mentioned the impact of the jungler. I also want to touch on the impact of junglers and jungle as a whole when it comes to the top lane meta, because we've seen some new picks since the beginning of summer. I think of Gwen, Nocturne, Larssen also, who appeared during MSI. What do you think impacted top lane the most? Is it the fact that we had Viego and Gwen showing up, or maybe the jungle changes that we've seen?
I don't think the jungle changes did much. It was just 15 seconds extra cooldown or like respawn timer on the camps. I think it's mostly Viego and Gwen threw everything in the air at the beginning of the split just because they have been disabled during MSI, and when you have 2 new champions just popping out of nowhere, the whole meta kind of revolves on figuring out if they're OP or not. And I think in week 1 there was a lot of experiments, and in the scrims leading to week 1 where Gwen and Viego were kind of top prio, and people were just deciding if they're counterable or if they're just so broken that you need to permaban them. And I feel like now that the meta is a bit more stable, there's place and counterplay for all of these champs. So, I mean, it's kind of inevitable when you add 2 new champions to the game at the same time that the meta will explode.
I see. And now that players had time to get used to it, what's your take on the meta? How do you find it?
I mean, there's room for kind of everything, but there are some power picks that are just shining through every draft. And right now, if you can blind pick your top early in the draft, I feel like you get a lot of value. So that's why you see stuff like Nocturne and Larssen being primarily the blind picks for top. Well, unless they get counter picked super hard. So that's why you kind of need, you see some teams doing like Renekton and ban into Larssen blind pick and stuff like this. So yeah, I think outside of those blinds is still kind of stale. I feel like now that the meta is settling in, you kind of see the same champs every game. But I feel like there's still kind of room for creativity if teams underestimate or like overestimate the power of their blind picks and they think there's no counter. That's why I'm still kind of playing Cannon, even though no one's playing it, just because there's windows to pick it. But overall, I don't think that champ is even that strong.
All right. Well, we'll see what the new patches will bring in the weeks to come. Last question for you, Odo. You got Kia Player of the Game here, but I want to know, do you really deserve it, or is it Gwen making you look good, actually?
What? Okay, that's, you could not have worded that more bad, but I mean, can I just choose not to answer because you triggered me super hard? But I mean, Gwen is for sure strong, and I feel like I got a lot of priority at this game. And obviously, I'm a superstar player, so I would have gotten it no matter what. It's just I'm getting robbed every single game because Hans is winning lane bot too hard, and then I get thrown to the wolves. So yeah, that's just tough life, you know. When I get an OP champ, I can have some fun sometimes. Not very often, but sometimes I get player of the game. So that's very nice.
Yeah, and it was the case today. All jokes aside, you played amazingly, Odo. So thanks for rolling with the punches, and thanks for the interview today.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to entertain Twitch chat, as always.
Anytime. And we're going to take a break now for a few minutes, and we'll come back to see if Vitality can create another upset as they face off against Mad Lion. Stay tuned.